welcome everyone to the town hall again this Friday. And we have a special guest, one of our founding members and all around really swell guy, Vivek Gupta. Welcome. And we're going to hear a little bit about some of the news that he shared recently, his company shared at Legion, and particularly the $50 million raise and how much of all that's going to be given out to people attending today's town hall. Yeah, probably none, but that's okay.
Well, I'll be first in line, okay?
You'll be first in line. All right, that's fine. No, thank you again for being a member and a subscriber and helping keep these events free and open to the public. So welcome, and Arun, welcome as well as Greg's guest. Vivek, if you would, just take a minute to introduce yourself.
My name is Vivek. I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area. I work for a company called Legion Technologies, which is, I'll tell you more about it, but in short, it's in the workforce management space, things like scheduling, time and attendance, and so on and so forth. My background really is HR tech through and through, a couple of decades now, or a little over that now. And in that course of time, I've done a variety of different roles, ranging from, product management, implementations, customer-facing roles. And, for the most recent years, it's been focused on technology partnerships. And at Legion, I'm responsible for an exclusive partnership with SAP, where we are really trying to get up to the partnership ladder. Jim here will know all about what it takes to get there, but that's my role at Legion. I'll leave it at that. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you're not already connected. And with that, I am going to share my screen. What is Legion? Before we do anything about Legion, let's kind of jump into what the news item was around our raise that we did. Play this video from Riverwood Capital, which is the sort of lead investor in Series D that we just completed. Just take a minute to kind of go through this, and we'll kind of get into a little bit of details here. So here we go. Let me see if you can hear the sound. If not, just hold on.
We did.
So yeah, that was a little bit of a shameless promotion of Legion, but I think it kind of gets me started to what I want to talk about, our mission. So it's a very simple statement around turning hourly jobs into good jobs. And some of this terminology is being debated internally, where we now kind of like think that needs to be expanded a little bit. But the history of our company really is that it was founded in 2016 after our current CEO, Sanish Monkar. He had spent a couple of years with SAP after being part of the core team at Ariba, for those that are familiar in that space. When Ariba was sold to SAP, Sanish was part of the technology team there. And after having, spent some time there, he kind of took a time off a little bit and worked at a barista just to kind of understand what the challenges were for frontline workers. And as he did that, he realized that, there was real lack of empathy when it came to these frontline workers' preferences and matching them with jobs that were good jobs. And so it was founded on the principle that, hopefully I'm not just talking to myself. No,
yeah.
Okay. So it was actually founded on the principle that we need to kind of look at hourly jobs from a very different lens. And so all of the workforce management platforms that we are typically familiar with, starting from workforce software, P, and many others, They were primarily founded with HR and HR operations in mind. It was never about employees. It was really kind of, hey, I want to find somebody who can fill a shift at the cheapest cost, right? Legion was actually founded from a very different perspective, which is really entirely from the employee's perspective first. And so when we thought about the platform, it was kind of like, we absolutely want to improve the cost and optimize the sort of the cost of putting the right butt in the right seat, if you will. But it was also kind of like very uniquely driven from the fact that the employees have certain preferences. I want to work a certain shift. I don't want to work one. I don't want to drive 20 miles for a 2-hour shift. I want to be able to work Mondays and Thursdays and not Saturdays. And I want to work, only these hours. And, I only want to work shifts that have certain other criteria that meets my needs. So really, it was about creating that engagement with employees and giving them some tools that they could really start to kind of, integrate in their preferences and lifestyles, if you will. And so the core belief was we can improve not only the labor efficiency, but also improve the employees' engagement simultaneously. And to do that, Legion in 2016, when it was founded, AI and ML were kind of like, sort of in the mix, but not necessarily the hype that we are kind of seeing right now. But if you think about labor and labor optimization, it's really a machine learning problem. So we started out with machine learning, which is now obviously kind of taken a whole new dimension. But we fundamentally are an intelligent automated software, which is employee-centric. That's kind of how we think about our platform. In terms of the funding that I want to talk about, we are at a total of about 145 million raised total since inception. Our 409A valuation is still going on. So please don't ask me what the company is valued today. I don't know the answer, but I certainly will know soon. So the latest round was about 50 million growth fund. And in terms of the growth, where are we and what are we going to do use this funds for? So absolutely, a lot of this is going to go down into our product and look at innovation and drive that innovation more and more. Some of the names that you see in our investors, you will probably notice Workday, which was a very early partner. They haven't subsequently kind of invested in Legion as much, and we prefer not to kind of take too much capital from them anyways. With our recent sort of shift in direction with SAP, that partnership, that whole engagement with Workday is kind of like, we're just kind of keeping the lights on, if you will, right, with Workday. But everybody else in the sort of cap table is very much involved in this current round as well. What are we going to use the funds for? So I was starting to talk about product innovations. We are also looking to expand our offering in different verticals. So we started out, from a barista background. You can probably guess we are really extremely well positioned for retail and various types of retails, right? Not just departmental stores or anything, but think about convenience stores, gas stations, retail banking and others as well that we are trying to kind of, we have some presence there already. But really, we are expanding our verticals now, and we're kind of now going into some of the other adjacent verticals, mostly on the coattail of SAP. That's kind of where some of this investment will go to. We are also going to geographically expand into Europe. We've started to kind of make inroads into our first hires in Europe, setting up shop and that sort of thing. So really this year and the subsequent years is going to be all about expansion in our vertical and geography. So what do we do in terms of the WF platform? We kind of think of our platform as a 3 sort of bucket offering, if you will. First is all about planning the work. It's about, how much labor budgeting needs to be, accounted for. What is the demand that we forecast? And then creating some strategic insights out of it, which then gets fed into our automated scheduling process, where we take a look at what the employee preferences are. And then we match all of that with automated scheduling. And then and all of that kind of ultimately results into a schedule that gets published. So that's part of the execute. And obviously, you then have to record time against schedules, which is where the time attendance piece comes in. And then empowerment of employees is another part that we kind of think we differentiate on. is that our inbuilt communication tools that are available in the platform are all schedule aware. And that is actually quite a big deal when it comes to WFM platforms, because you could communicate with chatbots, you can communicate through different channels and be able to manage your schedules as though you were in a conversation style with our chatbot or with our Copilot, if you will. We also have a unique offering in the empowerment category. You may be familiar with a category of software called Earned Wage Access, things like Daily Pay and others.
Instant Pay.
Instant Pay is what we call our offering. It's all about, an employee kind of finishing a shift and having the ability to get paid instantly. Now, it's a white label solution but the neat thing is it is completely white label. We're deeply integrated, and the platform that powers our instant pay solution is WageStream. So some of you may be familiar with WageStream as well.
WageStream, yeah, nice.
Yeah, I think they started in the UK. They are pretty significant now. I'm not going to bore you with more. Lastly, I kind of threw this because I think this got board's attention more than anything else. It's one of those marketing campaigns that is ongoing right now, where we are inviting any and all people who are interested in this topic to sort of spend some time with us. We're going to a couple of different cities over the next few months. There's a link here if you're interested in attending and learning more. It's obviously WFM-centric, but nevertheless, it's also driven for general ops people, IT people, HR people, beyond just pure WFM topics, if you will. Okay.
Maybe it's a good time to ask, if I may. Yeah, SAP has their HR Connect tour, if you will, and that kind of bounces around the globe, but they typically get their partners to fund it or sponsor it. I see your tour is sponsored by Legion. Are you engaging partners in that? What kind of partners do you have? Is it going to change with the funding? I don't know if, I don't think it was mentioned in the press release, just wondering.
Yeah, no. So here's the sort of bottom line right now. So we are definitely on the maturity scale when it comes to alliances. And, I would call ourselves mid of the line right now. So there's a whole section of WFM implementation through SI channel that we are starting to kind of now wrap up. The technology partnerships are not something that we have really looked at right now, but there are certain topics that are of interest. Things like learning, for example, right, for frontline workers, or rewarding. And rewarding can mean many different things, beyond traditional rewarding. There are other topics that kind of tie into WFM type of solutions, which we will start to take a look at. Now, that is going to be in the near future. I cannot share a definitive timeline around those type of partnerships. What we have today is sort of very core to our product offerings, where there are certain gaps that these partners fill. So companies like Ubik and Zipline and Connors, they are kind of a mix of advisory consulting all the way through to technology offering in the task management space, for example. So those partnerships exist, but we are a heavy concentration on SAP right now. And so our partnerships will likely expand to include implementation partners more so than anybody else right now. We're doing that in North America already. Our go-to-market in the European market is likely going to be partner-driven. Now, that could kind of be a variety of different things, ranging from referral type of partnerships all the way through to VARs. We are kind of toying with some of these ideas, and we are starting to have conversations. I expect some of this to kind of start to hash out in the third quarter of this year.
Yeah, very smart to start going down the implementation build out, because that's the scale that you're going to need. Actually writing a white paper based upon my own experiences, that any software company going through what I'm terming the revenue journey, and usually you see certain capabilities necessary from 0 to 30, and then 30 to 100. You cannot get past the 100 million readily if you do not have a built muscle for third-party implementation. So the criticality of that, and it takes about a year to get the early stage readiness. That second year is where you perfect it and you're truly ready for it. So you're on the right path.
That's the endorsement. Thank you, sir. Yes, and we've had I would say, some successes, early successes already with Corners, and there are some traditional WFM partners out there that we work with on a opportunistic basis, if you will. And so the initial muscle is what kind of we are building right now. But I think a lot of this will scale as we get deeper and deeper with SAP. And that partnership is really coming along well. We are starting to see a huge amount of traction with the deal flows with SAP, which is quite unheard of at our level of partnership with SAP. And for those that are familiar with SAP partnerships, there's like tiering and that sort of thing. And we are currently at the lowest tier, but there's a lot of interest in kind of helping us move up the ladder pretty quickly. There's a decent deal volume coming through. So yeah, all in all, partnerships is really key here.
Have you all built in conversational AI or chatbot functionality into it?
Yes, we do, Jade.
What's the use case for that? Where are your clients getting the most value? Because I'm seeing that space independently blowing up in a good way.
Yeah. So we started out with very transactional type of conversational AI, which was kind of like, tell me what my schedule is, or can I work this schedule? Can I do this or that or the other, right? Something that will be driven by WFM operational data, if you will. And then that evolved into tell me what the policies are with respect to, for the back-end HR people, tell me what the policies are for FLSA requirements, for example. Or things like, I want to swap a shift. Can you help me find somebody that is qualified, available, readily, can do all of that stuff? So those are kind of tactical stuff. We are moving in the direction of taking all of that data and kind of creating really kind of conversational flow for insights. That's where we are going next. We do kind of have proprietary models, but we are also using OpenAI and others. And that just came out yesterday on our disclosure for sub-data processes, for OpenAI being one of them that really kind of using a lot. But
let me ask you,
that part is a growing function. And we are also using not necessarily conversational AI, but the sort of the generative AI, if you will, to help with, conversations also. Plus, there's all these recommendation engines and all that stuff that we've historically done ever since we started. So those are not new for us, but they seem to be getting a lot of attention now, given the hype cycle right now.
Well,
A quick question.
I imagine that Workforce Software is very concerned by you.
I'm very happy to hear that, Jim.
It's just his imagination.
Yeah, SAP has been attempting to replace that partnership. Their Solex. The biggest challenge you're going to have is the reps get paid dollar for dollar on a Solex deal versus the rev share from there's 15% rev share at your level, which is far better than the 50% that Workforce has to pay, which makes you probably more aggressive on pricing too. So be leery of the highest category, but also be leery of getting cut out from opportunities because the reps are coin operated at SAP.
Exactly.
Sorry, I interrupted someone. My apologies.
No.
This
all good.
This is good. And we just, again, in this friends and family group, we are being asked by SAP to move very quickly into the endorsed status, which is the next tier below Solex, of course, you know that. And the benefits of that status in terms of rev share, at least from a AE perspective, rep perspective, they get pretty much 100% quota retirement, sorry. Comp also kind of bumps up to, I think, close to 80-90%. So hopefully that will level
100%.
a little bit.
100%. It's dollar for dollar as if it was an internal SAP product. I brought my last two companies onto endorsed apps. It's 35% rev share, which is painful when you start signing 7-figure deals. Negotiate. Negotiate.
It is fun. It is fun. I'll talk to you a little bit about that, Jim, separately. I use some guidance around that.
You might need a stiff drink.
Yeah.
I'll have to come get you one first. But no, I'll definitely.
Vivek, can you talk a couple minutes about just the tech stack for those that are interested in the technology, and then after that, see Brad has his hand raised, so we'll ask Brad this question after that.
Yeah. So essentially, so let's talk about that so we are AWS hosted, everything that you're gonna expect from a hyperscaler like AWS, we have it, right? Availability, DR, GDPR stuff, all of that stuff. So from the lowest level, we are public cloud infrastructure, multi-tenanted, of course, native in the cloud. And then from a product perspective, we've got a bunch of different front-end technologies from Angular all the way through to, what am I thinking of? Never mind. It's one of those modern technologies, sorry. And then the base is Java, it started out. And then the databases are all kinds of like stuff here. Given the AI stuff, we also now have to kind of do vectors and all that stuff. So it's pretty modern in that sense. We will look to get FedRAMP certified at some point in the future, like not distant future, hopefully near future. We don't play in the federated industry space right now. So that's one area that we'll look at. Yeah, let's see that. So Brad,
so have you built all your, 1 second before we switch to topics? Although I'm sure this is probably what Brad's going to ask as well. It's like, so have you built all your own technology? You mentioned obviously Instapay is white labeled, but what's been the approach, and are all your development done in-house? Do you work with other groups? You mentioned obviously partnering for some things like learning or whatever, but
yeah. So the core of our platform is all homegrown, right? I mean, it used to be a company that was closely affiliated with us back in the early days, but now they are all sort of part of, batched as Legion employees. So we are about 200 or so full-time, 150 or so full-time, and another 100 kind of like, still on that model, if you will. All of that development work happens in India and in a couple of different places in Europe. Where we are going with the partnerships and some of these other non-core functions, call it board, I'm still sort of at the point where, my charter is really kind of, make SAP happen, but I will definitely work with whoever wants to work with us and see what kind of potential partnerships we can have. I found something really interesting last night on a company called, I think it was called Shift Healthcare or Shift, something with healthcare and Shift.
Makeshift.
What's that?
Makeshift?
No, not Makeshift. Makeshift
No,
is in
Shift Med.
Yeah.
Shift
Right?
Med. Yeah, that's right.
Shift Med.
So Arun and Greg, we should talk about what that is. Very relevant for what we're trying to do. But that could be an interesting sort of play with us, where anything that touches the frontline workers is likely to be of interest to us. Whether that is making their lives easier by way of, making opportunities available to them. So from the recruiting side, or from learning side, or from
employee experience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So how does that, is that a partnering opportunity with the companies that are dedicated to the frontline workers, such as Fountain or Grayscale, Paradox?
So, I mean, some of these are friends already. So my take right now is yes, but it is not going to be, that kind of partnership will not be useful if it's very superficial. It has to be pretty deep. So think of Paradox as an example, right? I mean, Paradox does a fantastic job managing through their sort of, their interface through AI, right? And for us, we need to be plugged in very deep into what they offer. So Grayscale, for that matter. I mean, similar type of use cases where if you are a frontline worker and you are hired, what does that mean for continuity of your work? And are you engaged? And then somewhere
All the moments that matter. Yeah.
So all of that kind of comes into play. We're not there yet, to be very honest with you. We are really focused on making sure that some of our name is very much sort of restricted in retail right now. We want to kind of expand that. And these other sort of partnerships that I'm talking about, while they're important, I think it's going to be driven a little bit by sort of customer demand, right? I mean, as they see more and more of these players and want us to integrate with them, we'll definitely look into those. Strategically, if there's others that make sense, then I'll be happy to kind of, consider or push for them, whatever the case may be.
All right, We had a hand up there from Brad for a while. If you could take it. Next question, Brad. You're on mute. Yeah.
There you go. Awesome. No, thanks, Ward. And Vivek, great to see you after a while, and excited to hear about the work that you're doing, and great to be in the room with everybody here. When you speak about employee experience, I would love to chat with you because I just got back from speaking at a conference in Chicago. I've come across some stuff that I think will be particularly valuable to the work that you're doing. And I'm curious with Legion, have you guys found a sweet spot? Have you guys found your market that is your sweet spot right now? Is it across different domains? Like, is it healthcare? Is it organizations that have a lot of frontline workers? Is it a mix? Like, is it tech companies? Like, have you guys found your sweet spot?
Yeah, good question. So one thing to know is we started out on the scheduling side. So our sweet spot right now is complex, mind-boggling complexity for scheduling. We can handle that.
Okay.
Now, the problem with that is it becomes very domain specific very quickly.
Yeah.
So if you think about complex scheduling for airlines versus complex scheduling for a coffee shop, they're entirely different problems, right? So starting with retail, I want to say we've scaled retail, right? So our sweet spot is there, but with scheduling comes time. And so we are now flexing our muscles and really kind of very quickly coming up to speed with time, and combining those two will become our core strength, much like what we are probably familiar with Chronos and workflow software. So we are kind of building a muscle on the time side. In the next couple of quarters, we are going to make huge inroads. So that's our sweet spot: retail, scheduling, scheduling in other verticals, but cautiously, because the complexity of healthcare is very different from complexity of retail, for example.
And is it just North America? You mentioned going to Europe. Now you're starting to get.
We already have customers outside of North America, but we didn't have a physical presence there. So we're now going to establish physical presence in Europe as well.
Gotcha. Cool. Based on what you shared, Vivek, I'm not sure how we missed this or how I didn't share this with you before, or I didn't cover this. The domain of employee experience at the frontline level is my founding or birthing space, quite frankly, because I specialized in staffing for exhibitions, conferences, retail staff. Like, that was the business we built and sold. So I'd be curious to hear how you guys are looking at it, and I'd love to share some insights and kind of
Let's chat, Brad. I think, the last few times we've spoken, I was only kind of getting back in this space. So
yeah, of course.
Never really kind of talked about it, but happy to chat more.
Let's do it.
Next, Larry had his hand up for a while as well.
We need to figure out how to make our training, ongoing. And so it moves beyond just like you were saying, Vivek, answering a simple question and then a little further. It needs to be a training session when somebody asks a question now. And so the idea is that we are customizing that connection with chatbots so that it's not just left as a checkbox that someone's onboarded. It becomes a part of all of the routines in AI. AI integration, you guys heard me say it. That's still my favorite hashtag now is hashtag AI integration, because without that, all of this they're going to either replace us because we're standing in the way, or we'll decide to not have any AI at all going forward. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Is the point. There's a whole fight here because we haven't figured out how to make all of this gel.
If you saw the movie Atlas recently, I think we all know how it's going to play out, right?
And everybody needs to see Atlas. It's a wonderful 2-hour movie.
Is it?
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm actually very hopeful.
Netflix.
I'm actually very hopeful. I'm very hopeful. I think AI is gonna. It'll like any technology, it's gonna cause massive change. But I'm hopeful. I don't want to hold up the line, Larry. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
But to Vivek and James' discussion on that, we're trying to integrate more aspect of onboarding utilizing the AI tools for my client in Mexico on how they design these programs to onboard.
So we have Lloyd's name is, Lloyd's hand's been up for a bit as well. Lloyd, do you want to chime in with a question?
Hi, Vivek. Sorry, I'm logged in twice. So the logo is speaking, but you can actually see me on camera on a different spot.
Okay,
I'm
I
having,
see now. Yes.
That's impressive. Man. How'd you do that?
Your speaking camera is muted, so it's kind of weird.
okay.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, no, it's technical issues. I probably need a new laptop, but yes, I'm calling in on my phone and my laptop. So nice to see you again. Congratulations on the raise. Your value proposition, I'm not really crystal clear on it. I understand that you can go into very large organizations, retail, and schedule, their teams. That's easy. But you mentioned recruitment, which is where I come from. And it sounds like you have a presence with the worker, which to me is the same as a candidate, and you can deliver messages to them such as other jobs. And I'm like, no, that's not right. Okay.
No, that's right. Yeah, sorry, I should have clarified. So there's two components to our value proposition. The first component is we need to look at the employer, and what we can drive for the employer is all about cost and optimization of labor. So it's all about labor cost optimization. And then on the flip side, on the employee side, the comms piece that you're talking about is really workforce management related comms. So that's generally a little different comms than, reaching out to them for like general purpose stuff. So think about a retail and say there is, initiative in a certain geography that needs to be pushed down from the corp to the district, for example, right? So the comms is, okay, we're going to do these initiatives at a certain days, at a certain time. What does that mean for the workload for the workers, right? I mean, what are they going to be staffed at, that sort of thing. And then all of that kind of gets accounted for when those workers are scheduled. So the comms are really around the workforce management piece. Now, beyond that, the comms that I'm talking about can also be used to kind of talk with each other within teams. And it's
Internal
really
communication.
for swapping shifts and that sort of thing, right?
Okay, so the first thing you said was you're about more empathy for the workers and making their jobs better, and the way you do that is by optimizing their relationship with their current employer.
That is correct. So there's some plans there. So let me kind of double click on that. So it starts with an employee. As part of the onboarding of the employee into our platform, we kind of ask them some really simple but yet very profound, deeply profound questions around their preferences. It kind of touches on their availability, which is kind of table stakes, but it also talks about, we ask questions around, their preferences for what kind of work they want to do, how long they want to work for, what kind of, pay scale and that sort of thing makes sense if, let's say, they were not doing their regular job, but they were filling in for somebody. All those kind of things are from an employee perspective. Then the scheduling that we do, one of the key things in workforce management is how do I fill a shift that either was abandoned or was a no-show or just didn't have the right qualifications and didn't find the right people. And that's where our platform really kind of can reach out en masse to these people and offer shifts, and no human interaction is required. It's all automated, where the employees can themselves pick and choose what they want to work on. And the system will kind of, make sure that it is compliant and all the labor laws are followed and so on and so forth, right? And then the instant pay is another one where we are differentiated, where we are kind of talking about, hey, we can pay you right after your job. And I think that value proposition is pretty simple to understand. But where we are going next with this is kind of radical. Think about a marketplace of these frontline workers that may have worked for we are right now. But what we are thinking of doing in this space is to have these guys have already signed up for Legion. The mobile app is already there. We know who they are. And as they leave the organization, we can offer them jobs or shifts based on their skills and preferences at a different employer in their vicinity. So that's the only part that is different from what I was talking about, availability and that sort of thing. The empathy part is really about making sure they're working the jobs that they want to work for, they're paid adequately and in time and instantly, and possibly also kind of start to look at them once they sever the relationship with their current employer.
So yeah, the questions that, just to be clear, you're asking great questions to build a very meaningful and differentiated profile about what a candidate wants. And this is the space I've been trying to develop for a long time. But are you doing that after the person is hired, or are you doing that as a part of an application process?
No, it's not candidate assessment. No, unfortunately not.
No, I'm not talking about candidate assessment. The assessment is different to me. Like just saying, like, how far do you want to commute? What days do you want to work? What do you work night shifts? All that stuff. That's not necessarily assessment, or it's not assessment as HR professionals usually mean it.
Yeah, I meant not as part of the hiring process. That's what I meant. Not assessment in the traditional assessment sense. No, we're not doing that at the time that they're being hired. This is onboarding. They're already
right,
and we are onboarding them into our platform. So there is value in sort of picking it upstream.
And your customers are it's in your contracts that you have a right to that information after that person leaves, or even while they're there. It's your information as much as the candidates, as much as your customers.
I shot myself in the foot, didn't I?
Short answers, yes.
So we're not there yet, Lloyd, right?
Okay.
I mean, what I shared was that's a strategic vision on where we want the company to go. So making hourly good jobs is not necessarily about just what they're doing right now. It's about making sure that the frontline workers can treat their frontline as a career option and go further beyond just, I want to just pay like a lowly, low paying job, basically. So what I shared was really a little bit of a vision where we are going. And we have the data, right? We already have that data. Most of it is usable in the fashion that I described. We are architected to be able to do it. We haven't productized this idea just yet. But that's the hope that we will go in that direction.
Okay.
Getting candidate permission is a different story for sure.
Well, candidate, but it's more so beyond that. It's also goes into data, like, does the data belong to purely to the candidate, or part of it is also the employer, right? I mean, the preferences are candidates, that's fine. But then there are other things around, what kind of work have you done for us to be able to match you to other jobs is potentially gray area, right? So.
Well, it's interesting as you're partnering with learning companies too, or looking to, the big question that comes up is, if we train our people better or help them learn to improve, they tend to leave because they're opportunistic. I now have the certification. I mean, statistically, they're more likely to leave if you help them improve their credentials, especially if they don't have a career path or a clear one where they're at. So do you invest in that? And I think that same parallel would be drawn to what we're talking about, that candidate preferences portfolio as part of their resume or whatever, the portable resume thing. If it's portable, are they more likely to take another job because it's easier for their new employer or for them to quickly ramp up and be considered for the right jobs, right? So that may be a path to look at. I mean, something, look at the whole learning and training aspect as you look at partners or whoever has that expertise, because it's the same kind of dilemma, I believe.
Yeah, that's going to be a growing big deal, I think, because it is a way of actually improving the value proposition of why work for me at zero cost. And that's why large retailers will adopt it for early career people, and it'll work. If somebody shows up, I've talked to some retailers who said, if I could identify who would stick around for 100 days in the recruitment process, that's the value. I'm like, yeah, it is. And that's the portability that you're mentioning. But so if you make that a part of your talent acquisition proposition, you're tying in why work for you. And it's the reason that someone would work for you, or the employer is saying, come work for me, I will train you, I will get certifications. And if we can't promote you, we're happy to see you get some better outside our organization.
And that's the premise that a lot of what solutions like us haven't really gone down that path, right? Talent management It's like
There isn't
global.
anybody there. I don't think there's anybody offering that as a platform or as a value
Not
proposition.
to the degree. Yeah, I agree, Lloyd. I agree. But fundamentally, technology vendors are in it for like, can we solve small pieces of it, right? I mean, look at Fuel 50 Load. I mean, those are my favorite
Yeah.
companies with
Yeah.
mobility and that type of use cases. But clearly, it is not tied to the transactional piece of it. Of, hey, I know what you worked. I have all that data, and I can predict what you should be trained on, which then kind of augments through learning. But now that you have done it, can I offer you something? Maybe you don't even want to leave your current employer. Maybe there's another employer in your vicinity that requires the same skill set, and you have time and availability. We can offer you some work. I mean, that is the value proposition that we are trying to kind of,
Yeah. Well, the value proposition, Ward, close your ears on this. How long have I been talking about EY and the work I've been trying to get going with them? So we're addressing it again now that everything is calmed down. But a report that we did for them back 2 years ago, we could show that they just 30 days added to their hourly workers for their workforce development group, which was my old client. And he runs that whole arena now. $250 million increase in tax savings. Okay, $250 million. So it's huge. That's 30 days. So there are ways of actually monetizing that with just a few aspects of government regulations, work opportunity tax credit, and some decreases in unemployment cost management, solutions. So that is being readdressed again. So I'm back at that. So if you're interested in that, we're starting that conversation up again because we have a place now that we can take their software to go after their audit clients, because they couldn't do that because that's why they were trying to split their audit and their tax could not have the same client. And so there are these huge clients out there that want to use these tools, these AI tools that were created for workforce technology. They couldn't. Now I have a resource that will actually put it on his server, their software, and we can go after that market. So yes, anybody interested in playing in that game, the award, you've heard it too many years. It's finally coming about.
Good, congrats. Last time, we're out of time, but Greg, if you had hopefully a quick question, or at least throw it out there, see what.
Oh, I don't know that it's all that I think it's kind of, picking away at Lloyd's ideas and just appreciating, and I'm sure that Vivek and his team are already doing this, right? If you can understand if a person, even if it's at multiple workplaces, is only taking a weekend shift or a night shift or what have you, it's in the profile category, but you begin to understand who that worker is and what their potential needs are, right? So if you're able at scale, Vivek, to understand if that same worker is coming back into your system through different employers, and you can see that they're always taking a night shift, or maybe they're even taking a similar shift at multiple employers in your system, then you could really understand that person and appreciate, maybe they have another full-time job, or maybe they're just making do to pay their bills, and there could be a lot of other questions asked to understand who they are, to move them along into other jobs. And it's a big complicated thing, but I think that's what if I'm thinking through, Lloyd, you're thinking, knowing your business and what you're trying to accomplish, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because it's somebody that's just only takes Sunday shifts.
Well, that crosses right over into like what Vendly is doing now under Workday, right? That side of workforce management. Vivek, do you go up against like Vendly? Is that a thing, or is it's a different? I mean, vendor management system, you wouldn't classify yourself as that, right?
VMSs have a slightly different value proposition, right? But as a platform like when we get really good at time management, time attendance, what happens is these VMSs require a different type of an approach. They kind of typically tie to procurement and billing very quickly. So none of the WFM solutions are really good at it.
Yeah, great. Vivek, thank you.